Another understated yet critical element in Clark's tactics was his use of rapid, mobile maneuvers. Rather than engaging in drawn-out battles or static defenses, he moved swiftly across the frontier. His ability to cover extraordinary distances over rough and unpredictable terrain allowed him to attack isolated outposts before enemy forces could consolidate. This form of hit-and-run or shock-and-awe strategy not only minimized his own casualties, but also forced his opponents into perpetual disarray, scrambling to respond to attacks they never anticipated. Equally important was Clark's astute integration of local intelligence and community dynamics into his operational planning. He understood that rigid military might alone could not secure the frontier. By forging alliances with local French settlers and even elements within Native American communities, those who found British rule less favorable, he significantly enhanced both his logistical support and his strategic positioning. This blend of conventional military operations with elements of guerrilla tactics and local diplomacy allowed him to gather crucial intelligence, secure supply routes, and often capture targets with minimal direct conflict. Lastly, Clark's personal example on the battlefield added an indispensable layer to his tactics. By enduring the same hardships as his men, his visible commitment to the mission served as a potent motivator, reinforcing the idea that no obstacle was insurmountable if the collective will was strong enough. His willingness to share in the physical and psychological burdens of the campaign turned a challenging expedition into a crucible for building extraordinary unit cohesion and determination. These nuances, the exploitation of environmental hardships, the embrace of rapid and flexible maneuvers, the clever integration of local alliances, and the cultivation of morale through shared adversity, render Clark's battlefield tactics a rich study in adaptive, innovative leadership. They provide a timeless lesson in how blending the physical, tactical, and psychological dimensions of warfare can tip the balance even in the most adverse conditions. George Rogers Clark's family was steeped in the spirit of the Revolution, and several of his brothers played vital, though often understated, roles in the frontier campaigns that helped secure American claims in the Northwest Territory. While detailed records can be fragmented, historical accounts indicate that 4 of his brothers, commonly identified in more in-depth family histories as Jonathan, John, Richard, and Captain Edmund Clark, served alongside him during the Revolutionary War, each contributing in complementary ways that enhanced the overall effectiveness of his campaigns. Jonathan Clark was the eldest and among the most influential when it came to organizing and channeling local support. Educated and experienced in the practical affairs of his community, Jonathan's steady hand in administration and logistics helped to bridge the gap between military strategy and the broader colonial interests in the region. His role was not so much that of a frontline fighter as it was that of a strategic organizer whose efforts ensured that mobilized forces were well coordinated and that the necessary supplies and local alliances were secured. John and Richard Clark, though the details of their individual exploits are less celebrated in mainstream histories, were instrumental in the behind-the-scenes work that allowed George Rogers Clark's daring maneuvers to come to fruition. They often attended to the complexities of movement, communication, and the day-to-day logistics of maintaining a mobile force under challenging conditions. Their work in gathering local intelligence and fostering relationships with settlers and even certain Native American groups helped mitigate the isolation and vulnerability that came with frontier warfare. Captain Edmund Clark took on a more direct combat role. As a commissioned officer under George's command, Edmund led troops in the field and was actively involved in the tactical engagements that characterized the campaigns, especially during the winter operations where every ounce of resolve and leadership was tested as the men faced not only an enemy force but also the punishing elements. His leadership in battle contributed directly to maintaining discipline and morale when the challenges of icy terrain and adverse weather could have easily sapped the force's will. Together, these 4 brothers provided a multifaceted support system that magnified George Rogers Clark's bold vision. Their contributions were not solely defined by acts of combat, but by a shared commitment to an ambitious and often perilous mission, to wrest control of a vast, strategically critical region from British influence. Their actions helped to shape the military and political landscape of the American frontier, laying a foundation that would later support a nation on the move. It is important to note that while the youngest brother William Clark did not participate in these campaigns due to his youth, he later became a renowned leader with the Lewis and Clark expedition, furthering his family's legacy of pioneering exploration and service to the nation. This blend of personal sacrifice, complementary skill sets, and deep familial loyalty is a reminder of how leadership, both on and off the battlefield, is often a shared endeavor. It underscores that transformative military achievements are not the product of a single man's vision, but of a cohesive group motivated by common purpose and mutual trust. William Clark, the diplomat general of the Western frontier. After blazing trails with Meriwether Lewis across the continent, William Clark didn't fade into quiet retirement. Instead, he stepped into a new kind of battlefield, one of diplomacy, governance, and frontier defense. Appointed governor of the Missouri Territory in 1813, and already serving as superintendent of Indian Affairs, Clark became the linchpin of U.S. strategy in the Trans-Mississippi West during the War of 1812. While the eastern seaboard braced for British invasions, Clark's theater was no less volatile. British agents and their native allies sought to stir rebellion among Western tribes. Clark, drawing on his deep relationships from the Corps of Discovery, worked tirelessly to keep tribal alliances fractured or neutral, preventing a unified native front that could have devastated American settlements. He also oversaw the construction of key forts, such as Fort Osage, which served both as military outposts and trading hubs. These installations weren't just defensive, they were instruments of influence, projecting American presence deep into contested territory. Clark's coordination with local militias and his ability to mobilize frontier resources made him a quiet but critical architect of Western stability during the war. The broader Clark legacy in 1812. The Clark name didn't rest solely on William's shoulders. In Ohio, Colonel William Henry Clark, from a different branch of the family, embodied the same spirit of frontier leadership. He raised and equipped a regiment of the Ohio militia at his own expense, a sacrifice that echoed George Rogers Clark's earlier self-funded campaigns. Though not a direct descendant of the Revolutionary Clarks, his actions show how the family name continued to resonate in civic and military spheres.